Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name's Justin. Today's going to be a really big celebration video because the channel just reached a big milestone. 65 Drums has crossed the 100,000 follower threshold. And so YouTube sent me this cool little plaque in the mail, and I wanted to make a thank you video to you guys for helping support 65 Drums for the roughly 8 or so years I've been doing these videos. I started actually doing drum covers, but back then YouTube actually gave you channel strikes. If you got 3 strikes, your channel was gone. So I had to switch away from drum covers because the licensing deals with the record companies weren't really set in stone back in 2014. And I landed on doing electronic drum reviews. You guys started watching, and that's how this channel got to be where it is. A huge shout out goes to all these people on screen who help support 65 Drums on a monthly basis. So thank you again. Okay, so let's move ahead to question number 1 you guys sent in. Congrats on the new milestone. I got 2 questions. You always try to balance out styles of music and use cases in your reviews. But if you had to give an honest opinion, which styles of music do you think can be performed best in a professional live environment, using a fully electric kit? Also, what's your dream rig if your budget wasn't an issue? The only genre I think is not very well suited to electronic drums would probably be jazz. You know, if you're a big professional jazz player, you're gonna go play an important gig, you're probably not reaching for an F-note kit or a Roland kit. You can use electronic drums to do whatever you want. They're insanely powerful. But I personally play live with acoustic drums, and then I practice and do MIDI recordings with an electronic drum set. But you can use electronic drums however you want. In most genres of music, electronic drums got you covered, as long as you get a decent one. The next question comes from Snooze. Do you think E-drums and E-instruments in general maybe have a huge untapped potential waiting to be discovered? We seem to only approach them as substitutes for acoustic instruments, and manufacturers focus all their efforts on getting as close as possible to the real thing. But perhaps this technology opens up some new doors for new instruments or completely new ways to play music. You know, this comment really reminds me of this old Bill Bruford clip that you can see right here.
Sounds of an acoustic drum are enormously complex. What you get with electronic drums is something else entirely. The whole idea, it seemed to me, was that they should not be the same as acoustic drums, and in as much as the manufacturer kept trying to make them like acoustic drums, I'm not interested. I like them because they are a different instrument and require a different attitude from the drummer.
So as you can tell just from that clip, people have been thinking about this question for a very long time. Basically, there's 2 groups of electronic drummers. You got the people that use E-drums as an alternative to acoustic drums that are quieter and let you change the sound and output MIDI, so that makes it really powerful. But they want it to sound and feel and look very acoustic-like. And then you have another smaller group of electronic drummers that are more in your mentality, where they want to push electronic drums and do all kinds of weird and interesting things and try out different concepts and see what they can make electronic drums do. The ceiling on electronic drums is almost unlimited because MIDI and connecting it to Ableton and the fact that you can play entire songs on electronic drums, there's automation you can do. You can trigger light shows, you can trigger video wall elements, you can do almost anything with an electronic drum set. But the number of people that really tap into the full potential of electronic drums is minuscule. Not many people really do that. Most drummers, they actually use it more as an acoustic-like drum set that happens to be quieter and outputs MIDI. And so that's why manufacturers cater towards that demographic, because that's the majority of people. Manufacturers aren't trying to push an agenda on us. They just get a lot of emails from people saying, I want my electronic drum set to be bigger, I want it to be cheaper, and I want it to sound more acoustic-like. And I'm one of those people. I do try to play with electronic sounds every once in a while, but eventually I just go back to acoustic-like sounds because that's what I want my drum set to do. And that's why manufacturers are making larger electronic drums that look more acoustic-like and feel more acoustic-like, because that's where the majority of drummers want E-drums to land. But not everybody. Some people like you are more adventurous and they want to push electronic drums into different frontiers, and I am all for that as well. Okay, so the next question is, what got you into E-drums originally as a subcategory of drums? And what keeps you interested? I know you played/play acoustic drums too. And yeah, I love acoustic drums. I just don't talk about them that much because this channel isn't really about acoustic drums. What got me into electronic drums was probably this VHS tape from around 2004. Basically a Roland infomercial about their V-drums line at that time, which was like the TD10 era of electronic drums, and it blew little Justin's mind. It was an amazing advertisement video.
And remember, when it comes to electronic percussion, there is only one solution: Roland, the electronic drum and percussion company.
I do remember finally getting a chance to play one in like a Sam Ash and being a little bit let down because the advertisement VHS tape was so freaking good and so amazing. And then playing it in real life was a slightly different experience because I couldn't really play drums yet. But that didn't just get me into Roland, it also introduced me into the whole sphere of electronic drums and what they were capable of. So I got into Yamaha electronic drums, Alesis drums, and all the different competitors out there. The next question is from Buck. Where do you think you see electronic drums going in the next few years? And what do you think will change technologically? Okay, so the problem with making predictions about electronic drums, especially if you go long term and you get too specific, in the year 2030, Alesis will release the Strike 3. Like, that kind of prediction is always going to be off because you're being too specific. But as far as like overall trends, here's one thing I'm noticing. We're currently in an electronic drum pricing bubble. And this is because of inflation, but it's also the majority of the problem is coming down to how high the shipping prices are. It's a big tangled knot of problems that is related to oil pricing, the fact that shipping containers and even the ships that bring stuff over is expensive. That ends up going into the price of the drum set. There is no such thing as free shipping. That's just a marketing term, basically popularized by Amazon. So yeah, shipping prices have really made everything way expensive. And I think over the next handful of years, the next 5 years, I don't know when it will exactly happen, but electronic drum pricing will slowly go back down. The companies that will jump on this opportunity first to lower prices and try to undercut everybody will probably be the companies using Chinese components, like, for example, Alesis. They'll jump on being able to slash a few $100s off the price of their flagship kit. And then the Japanese companies will be a little bit more slow to react, and they'll eventually start backing down their prices as well. I don't know when this will happen, but I think this will eventually happen. As far as like the internals of drums, I don't think we're moving away from piezos and switches anytime soon. They've been used since like the 80s and 90s, so I don't really think that we've found anything significantly better. FSR has been around for a while and we still haven't switched to that. So yeah, I think piezos and switches will still be at the heart of most electronic drums for the foreseeable future. They work and they're cheap to manufacture. When it comes to the playing surface, I think mesh will still be king for a very long time until somebody figures out something better. I mean, a lot of companies have tried different things. Pearl has tried their True Track heads. You've had Enfuse trying to bring back rubber heads. You've had Yamaha with their TCS heads, but now they also have mesh alongside that. We'll have to see in the long term which outsells what. So I don't think mesh heads are going away anytime soon. And then of course, we've seen the very popular surge of low volume triggered cymbals lately, and I feel like that will continue. I don't know if it will actually overtake and replace rubber cymbals, but I think it will be a viable second alternative that will go on for a very long time. And then my final prediction would be that a major competitor is going to enter the electronic drum sphere in the medium to near future. And I think other companies will eventually follow in their wake because there's too much money to be made in the electronic drum world. I want to be careful saying this because there are a lot of struggling, like smaller electronic drum companies that aren't making a ton of money. But there is a lot of electronic drums being sold every single day. Because in many areas, at least of the United States, electronic drums are outselling acoustic drums in music stores. That is just something that is happening, especially in cities. Okay, so the next question comes to us from Icetown. Do you think Roland will create a successor to the TD50 KV2, a pad-based flagship? Or do you think they'll move away in favor of the VAD line? Congrats on 100K subs. The interesting thing about Roland is that they've been dragged kicking and screaming into the world of larger electronic drums. There was people in Roland years ago that was trying to get Roland to make larger electronic drums, and the management or somebody in the company was against it, and so it didn't happen for a very long time until recently when they finally kicked off the VAD line versus the TD line. Anyway, when it comes to the flagship, you've already seen a move towards larger sizes, because going from the TD50 KV to the TD50 KV2, now 2 of the drums are acoustic sized and only the toms are pad based anymore, versus the TD50 KV, the first version of it, which actually had an electronic kick drum pad. It just depends on sales. It depends on what people buy. I still see them moving towards larger sizes, but I think that there's a large enough group of people that want a flagship pad-based drum set that I think they're going to keep it around for the next flagship, maybe multiple flagships from now. I don't really know. Okay, so the next question comes from John Deff, who has, by the way, been watching 65 Drums for years and years. What are your favorite drummers? Okay, so I don't have like this big exhaustive list of all the different drumming influences I have, because I don't really follow that many individual drummers, but here's some of the ones I really like. I love Tony Rosser Jr. I've been watching him for years, on and off. He's amazing. Anakin Niles is someone that I really look up to as far as drumming. And then, of course, I really like Clay from Polyphia. He is awesome. The next question comes from Connor. What drum software is most worth it for the money? It's got to be EasyDrummer 3. That thing is polished for electronic drums, and it sounds great, so I highly recommend that. The next question is, what's your opinion on the Millennium MPS 1000? On paper, it's a beast for the price. Have you played it? Okay, so the answer is no, I have not played this drum set. I am aware of it though, because it made huge waves in the electronic drum community because it's an acoustic-sized electronic drum set for like under $1,000. The problem is it's a house brand of the company Thomann, and they're based in Europe, and you have to pay shipping to get to the United States. They don't sell it in USA music stores. It doesn't show up at like drum conventions. It doesn't show up at NAMM. So I've never seen a single Millennium drum set in my life. If the company ever reaches out and says, hey, would you like to review this drum set? I would say yes in an instant because I would love to see if it's any good or not. The next question is, what songs are your go-to jams? So when it comes to my listening to music habits, I usually have a song or two that I'm just really obsessed with for like a straight week or two, and I play them to death until I almost don't like hearing them anymore, and then I move on to the next song victim. So as of right now, what I'm listening to a lot is the song Highway to Oblivion by Dragon Force and Rotoscope by Spiritbox. But if you ask me next week, I might have some other song that I'm just listening to over and over again. The cycle continues. And then finally, I'll take one more question from this comment. What makes an electronic drum set perfect in your opinion? You know, there's two ways to attack this question. In my head, most of the time it comes down to, is the pricing right? I could have a drum set that sounds pretty decent, has decent number of components, feels nice, the quality is there, it looks cool, but if the pricing is too high, then the drum set isn't good. Meanwhile, you could have like an opposite sort of thing, where a drum set is a little mediocre if it was at $1,000, but they're charging $500 for it. That makes the drum set good because the pricing is right. So that's one definition on what makes a drum set good or bad. It's what kinds of features does it have? Does it have a personality? Does it have a goal, a certain kind of drummer it's shooting for? If it does that and it's at a good price tag, then it's automatically a good drum set. Another definition would be, are the components any good? You know, maybe it's a little expensive, but the quality is there, the sounds are pretty good, but maybe the drum set's a little small. It can still be a good drum set, just at a bad price. So it depends on your definition, but for me, most of the time it comes down to how much the drum set costs. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. At the end of the day, I can make hundreds of videos, but you choose whether or not this channel lives or dies, depending on if you click on the video and if you watch all the way to the end. So thank you for doing that.